and welcome Michael, Jeff, Wendy, and Richard. Hey, Wendy, you're with Duo Security, one of our partners here today. You're head of the advisory CISO's practice. Do you want to kind of kick it off and set the context of what we're talking about here today?
You know, the situation we find ourselves in is something that we didn't plan for. And as lots of people have been talking about today, there are a lot of things that we're doing now that we thought we couldn't do, you know, that we were really nervous about. And part of that is distributing the workforce and allowing flexibility and remote connectivity, and saying to the people that work for us, that the most powerful thing you can say is, I trust you. And this trust is playing out on the cybersecurity side. Now, there's there's a big thing these days about something called zero trust, which I don't really like that term. I think it is about learning how to get more powerful controls in place so that you can trust the workforce and you can trust the infrastructure that you have. So I think this is what we're focusing on these days.
A little bit more about Duo.
Well, Duo is making this trust possible. We started out with multi-factor authentication, but we have broadened beyond that to let you do things like check the security state of the devices that your people are using, even if you don't manage them. And being able to take a step back and say, look, you know, you can use what you want at home, but if you want to access company resources, you need to meet this security standard. And it's up to you to figure out how you want to meet it, to update your devices accordingly and so on, and then you can access what you need to. So making that trust possible is what we do.
Hey, Michael, want to join the program and give us a little context of San Rafael Hospital and your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys very much for having me here. I'm really humbled and honored to be here. So my name is Michael ARCHULETA. I'm the Chief Information Officer here for Mount San Rafael Hospital. We are a hospital here in Southern Colorado, and we're part of BridgeCare. So BridgeCare basically consists of 5 facilities. That's 4 25-bed critical access hospitals and 1 325-bed level 2 trauma center. So again, you know, we are definitely in the mix of things, and I really think the acceleration of digital transformation is truly here. And once we get into a little bit more of this topic, I'd really love to speak in regards to that, on how IT has been a critical point to the overall success of COVID-19.
Great, thanks, Michael. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the program. Glad you can make it. A little context around Honeywell Quantum Solutions.
Absolutely. And one thing I did want to say too is I certainly have not run into this before, and I don't think many of us have either. We're used to localized or regionalized issues, whether it's a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, a terrorist attack. Never, at least I shouldn't say, never say never. However, this is one of the first times that the playing field has been leveled across the board, across the globe. It doesn't matter if you're a vendor, if you're industry, if you're government, everyone is impacted. And that's why I believe these events are so important to us, and truly grateful to be on the panel with such great leaders. So really happy to be here. So Honeywell Quantum Solutions. So we're doing some very unique things. We're part of Honeywell International. We are building the world's most powerful quantum computer. So 2 days before the global pandemic hit, at least for us when we started to work from home, we made the major announcement that said in June of this year, we were going to release said world's most powerful quantum computer. And as you can imagine, the impact that that might have on an organization trying to deliver something like that, that requires a lot of hands-on in labs, working on our infrastructure. We were certainly impacted by this. Thankfully, I work with amazing scientists and engineers, and we are maintaining our track, and we still plan to release our quantum computer next month.
That's amazing. How long has that been in flight, that project?
So we've been working on it in earnest, I'd say, for the past 3 years. I've been in this role for the last 2. I'm very lucky that I run a cross-functional team where we are responsible for IT, cybersecurity, and physical security. But we've been slowly collecting the top physicists in the United States and harboring them here in the greater Denver area, and seeing what we can do to make a trapped ion computer work for the world.
Very, very cool. Love it. More in a minute. Hey, Richard, why don't you join the program? Would love to hear more about Solera and what you're doing there.
Yeah, so we are a seed-funded biomedical security startup. We're based out of Manhattan, New York, although I live and work from home in Boulder, Colorado here. So not an awful lot of change for me, although I don't get to go to the office quite so frequently as I once did. Yeah, I've heard a lot of the other speakers today talking about how COVID has impacted businesses and impacted their businesses in particular. And we've all read about a lot of people being laid off, but I have to say that we're going gangbusters right now, that COVID has really kind of helped a lot of our customers focus on cybersecurity, particularly since a lot of the nefarious players out there have tended to target us while we're in a mode of crisis in our companies. And I think that's drawn the attention of all of us to really to reevaluate the types of security controls we have in place and to keep things shored up.
Interesting. What are the challenges that you're coming up against?
Well, I think, you know, obviously the biggest crisis, and I tend to focus on the healthcare industry, and as Mike will attest, we work quite closely together here. Healthcare is being targeted quite offensively, actually, given the fact that, you know, our brave doctors and nurses are trying to keep us all alive through this pandemic right now, and that you know, a lot of hospitals have been hit with ransomware and other types of extortion while people are distracted. A lot of smaller hospitals are suffering a bit of a financial crisis right now because they haven't made the transition to away from payment by results. So their cash flow is determined by the number of visits that they make, the number of operations they perform, and of course, all of that has been put on hold right now. So they're in particular crisis.
Interesting. Great. Thank you. Wendy, back to you. What's the unique problem that you folks are solving?
Well, we like to say that our mission is to support your mission. So, you know, we try to make things as easy as possible, and then we try to get out of the way. So in the last few months, you know, with the pandemic and everything, we are seeing huge amounts of organizations starting multi-factor authentication for the first time. We were getting as many as 3,300 new signups a week. And that's, you know, besides the organizations that already had it, but not for everybody. And now they're expanding to make multi-factor authentication available to all of their employees. So we do that, but as I mentioned before, what we also do is give you more visibility. Like Brandon was talking about at the very beginning of this event, how to see what your people are actually using, not what you assigned to them, but what they picked up at home and are using to access your resources, and giving you a way to help secure those, even if you can't manage them. So it's a more collaborative model for security.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Hey, Michael, why don't you come back to the program there? Question for you. How are you dealing with such a massive pressure and demands in your system right now?
You know, so like I stated, truly the acceleration of digital transformation is here. You know, this crisis, in my opinion, this crisis has fully displayed the value of IT and digital transformation as a whole. And we all heard the saying, get your house in order. A lot of these organizations basically not getting their home in order at times becomes a major panic. So even in the healthcare industry, we're starting to see, well, what do we do now? We're sending people home. Are we doing it in a secure way? Are we utilizing two-factor authentication? How are we basically validating ID verification of any type of telehealth visits that we do? Are we spinning up the very first telehealth visit? Are we utilizing virtual desktop infrastructure? So there's a lot of questions in regards to it. And that's why I say, ladies and gentlemen, is that it is so critical to continue to basically keep IT as a center point and the core strategic point of operational success. Because like I say, hospitals and clinics are digital companies that happen to deliver healthcare services. We're living in the digital age of healthcare. We have to act like a digital company, you know, and we see our other partners in our other industries out there, the banking industry, the natural gas industry, these industries 2 years in advance when it comes to technology initiatives. But on the healthcare standpoint, we're dealing with patients' lives. That becomes a major, major problem, ladies and gentlemen. We should be leading the way when it comes to technology innovation. We should basically be moving forward together. We need to have those transformational CIOs in place that are really leading the overall pack. I always like saying that from crawling to walking upright to carrying the organization, how the overall CIO has evolved from an actual tech manager to an actual driver role in the organization. And again, we've heard several discussions in regards to the transformation of the CIO. And we're going to continue to see either if you're a villain or if you're an actual superhero moving forward. And that's really going to be a critical point to the overall success of what you are doing and what you're delivering to your overall organization.
You know, one last question, kind of closing comment, Michael. What are the unique approaches you're doing or using during this unique time of COVID-19?
Yeah, so absolutely. So we're starting to see a massive increase of telecommunicating applications. So telehealth has been a big initiative for us. We have successfully sent our employees home. So we are utilizing a lot of virtualization efforts, virtual desktop infrastructure. We've also incorporated a lot on a cybersecurity standpoint for two-factor authentication, for ID verification, to make sure that the individual that you're speaking to on the other end is the actual person that you're speaking to moving forward. We've also incorporated a lot of initiatives when it comes to the Internet of Things, validating where is our current ventilators, where are our medical devices in place, and then also coming out to the statement that security isn't just about data. It's basically a matter of life and death. And you figure when we look at medical devices and when we look at security as a whole, that becomes a major problem because medical devices, again, you know, these are specific items that are being implanted in us, being placed inside of us. Look at the pacemaker software alone. There was 6,000 security flaws associated with that. 6,000 on this issue itself. So again, cybersecurity is a matter of life and death. And it has been a top priority in this organization that we basically make security a top initiative moving forward, because that is an important factor, especially during COVID-19. And I like the statement that stated attacks of opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. We are truly, these hackers are attacking because of this opportunity. We need to be at our A game. And we're continuing, unfortunately, to see some massive ransomware attacks because organizational houses haven't been in order and haven't put cybersecurity as an actual top initiative. But that's not happening on my watch.
Thanks, Michael. Great stuff. Stay with us. Hey, Jeff, why don't you come on back? When you think of the kind of security layers and projects and initiatives that you're focused on, Jeff, in these unique times, what's working for you and what do you focus on most?
Well, if you subscribe to the old theory that it's better to be good, lucky than good, I'd say we fell into that category a little bit. And one of our predominant ways that we have protected our trade secrets and our intellectual property for quantum computing was going the traditional route of having an air gap segmented networking environment, which is great when all of your workers are on site. When they're all sitting at home now, that makes that physical connection that much more difficult. Leading up to the end of 2019, we had made some pretty substantial investments in some remote access capabilities, but not just the access control from a granular level, but also the ability to monitor those connections. And I know that somebody had mentioned this before, visibility is absolutely key, not just from an IT performance perspective, but clearly from a cybersecurity perspective. Being able to see what's happening in the network environment so that, and I know somebody said this, right? We have to trust our end users. And so, but we still have to trust but verify from a security perspective. So what I like to be able to do is at least have the ability to see what's happening and the ability to forensically go back in and look in case there is an alert of some sort that we can go see what happened during that time. So not just a data loss prevention perspective, but things that we're doing to actively monitor those lines coming in from a remote access connection into what used to be a very physically air-gapped environment that you had to be on site for. That has really been a significant challenge for us. And I think one of the key words that's been stated throughout today has been acceleration. And so having that in place has really allowed us to accelerate, get our scientists and engineers working remotely in a very secure way. And so that our team, from a cybersecurity perspective, can monitor for any type of anomalies in that environment, whether it's an individual doing something unintentionally, or if it's more nefarious activity coming in from the outside. So again, we were very lucky. We planned to be good, but we had to be lucky very fast. So very fortunate from that perspective.
Excellent. Great. Thanks for your time and your input. Hey, Richard, welcome back to the program one more time. When you think about kind of the lessons learned looking back, what did you learn most during this whole process?
Well, I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned, through the current crisis. One is that, crisis is an opportunity, right? If we look at, the Chinese word for crisis, it's Wei Ji, if I pronounce that correctly, which means, crisis plus opportunity, right? Or danger plus opportunity. And I think those of us that have been forced in many ways by the adaptation of our business environment to send our employees home, to embark upon very rapid digitalization and adoption of technologies and services, particularly in the healthcare space, as Mike talked about with telehealth, which has absolutely exploded since February this year, as patients tried to stay as far away from the doctor's office and the hospital as possible. I think these are great opportunities for us to improve the efficiency of the services that we offer. But there's a caveat to that. We need to go back and we need to reassess the security controls that we have in place, right? So do we have adequate multi-factor authentication? Do we have a sufficiently robust BDI infrastructure to support our users working from home? Or alternatively, do we trust them enough to use their own BYOD devices? Simply because, as one of the other speakers mentioned, there's not enough laptops, right? You can't get a laptop for love or money right now. So, there's a lot of things that we need to go back and revisit. Jeff talked about micro-segmentation, right? Which is going to be critical for the containment of infestations on our network and perpetrators gaining access to our network. So we need better visibility. We need a better understanding of risks across our applications, our data, and our user base. And I think that the COVID pandemic, as horrible as it is, has really given us an opportunity to go back and reevaluate the architectures that we use to provide services to our users, whether that's a legacy client server on-site, on-prem type of service, or whether it's using an increased level of cloud-based services. Do we have sufficient capabilities on our VPN infrastructure to support indefinitely the number of users that we have? What risks are we uncovering by enabling split tunneling, for example, which was verboten before the crisis, but is now widely used in order to channel traffic, directly to the internet rather than push everything back to corporate HQ? These are a lot of questions that I think that we need to revisit over the coming months. And I think all of us on this panel are going to be extremely busy, either working through some of those issues in our own companies or advising our customers and clients.
Perfect. Well said, Richard. I want to thank you, Richard. I want to thank Wendy, Jeff, and Michael, the other panelists. Perhaps the other panelists could join us in a final kind of a goodbye. A big thanks to Duo Security and CyberArk. The summit was powered by Duo and CyberArk, great partners. Check them out. And the Denver Sim chapter. We look forward to being with you in person in the September timeframe for our in-person summit with you all. Thanks so much and have a great day. Appreciate your engagement.